Okay, today we're going to talk about bilingual education and the debate around that subject. So I think many of you probably have a story in your own family where you have a parent or a grandparent or a great-grandparent who came to this country not knowing English. They were thrown into a classroom and just left to sink or swim, kind of, and learn English that way, in an immersion kind of model. But in the 70s, there were a group of Chinese families who decided to fight against that for their children because they were finding their kids weren't doing very well in school in that kind of sink or swim model. So they fought against that and they advocated for bilingual education for their children. And so in 1974, Lau v. Nichols was passed by the Supreme Court, stating that just giving immigrant children the same materials in the same classroom wasn't actually equitable education. And so it mandated providing materials and supports in the home language. So bilingual education kind of took off at that point. And so students were, at that point, oftentimes educated in a bilingual education model where the goal was still that they learned English. So it's what we call transitional bilingual education. So they might have started learning part of the day in Chinese, for example, and part of the day in English, but then they gradually transitioned to English only. So they were still leaving their home language behind. And then there was also a movement a little bit later on in the 90s by a billionaire in California named Ron Unz, who decided that immigrant students were not learning English fast enough to integrate into U.S. society and to really get into the workforce and be productive members of U.S. society. And he started to advocate for English-only education for children in California at first, and he was successful in passing a law that said that there was no more bilingual education in California, and that kids should learn English as quickly as possible. So they were put into what was called sheltered English immersion programs, and that then took off also in Arizona, and a law was passed there, and also in Massachusetts. There were some caveats in there for programs that were really successful that taught in two languages for the entire time. So those are called two-way immersion or dual language immersion or some kind of immersion style programs. So there was a little caveat for those. But what studies have shown since then and prior to that is that students who learn in their home language or who develop literacy in their home language are able to transfer those skills over to English, and that they actually perform better on standardized tests that are only administered in English in most cases, but they perform better on those tests and in the long run even outperform their monolingual English-speaking peers. So after those laws were passed and a lot of this research started to come out, there's been a slow shift back towards bilingual education, but kind of opening it up to native English-speaking families as well now. So there's a big push for getting English-speaking kids to learn other languages, because right now with the global economy, it helps with finding jobs later on. In some states, they've even implemented statewide dual language immersion initiatives where kids are learning for 50% of the day in a non-English language and then 50% of the day in English. So they're doing all subjects in the language and learning content through language rather than just learning a language as a foreign language, as we traditionally think of it. So that's
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.